Hey, good evening, and welcome to the Uptown Parlay Podcast. Now your host, Ace.
Welcome to the Uptown Parlay Podcast. Ace and Malik.
Yo. No, so what I was saying is before when I was doing the other podcast that I do, I'm not gonna plug it because it's not like we're paying for you.
I don't care.
But when I was doing the Cash Poly podcast, while doing that, I was looking for additional ways to make revenue and to connect with the fans, right? And because we were sending our email address and everything, nobody was emailing us, and we had our Facebook and Instagram and so on and so forth. So I was like, okay, well, how can we connect with our fans in a different way? Because we had people that were watching, that were paying attention, but it wasn't coming through like the regular channels. Like they were just downloading the podcast. What it was they were telling my co-host Justin. They were legitimately like they would see him when they saw him in the street, and they'd be like, "Yo, that show was really dope." And I'd be like, "Why aren't you interacting with us like interactively?" So I started looking up, trying to figure out ways that we could interact with our fans. And so I'd heard about Patreon, and I was like, "Well, Patreon is more like a pay to play type of service where you like offer exclusive content." I was like, I don't really necessarily want that. I want something where people can come, they can listen to our stuff, but they can also like chat us, like live chat us, like a Slack channel or something like that.
Like you
so then I heard about, So then I heard about, then somebody mentioned like OnlyFans, and I was like, what is that? I had no idea what it was. So I went and checked it out. And when I checked it out, I was like, oh, at the time, the majority of people that I saw, because you can sign up for free, right? So the majority of people that you see were just like workout people. It was like workout people.
It wasn't all X-rated.
Yeah, it wasn't all X-rated. It was just a bunch of regular people. And then eventually, I started like looking into it because I created a page for the podcast. I created a whole page, and I was like, okay, because creating a page was free too, right? So I was like,
for the holidays, check out the Cash Poly Podcast.
It's been deleted. It's been deleted.
I was about to make you a millionaire.
No, because that's what I said. It was free to create a page. And I was like, okay, so now we got to put content on there. Well, what kind of content should I put up there? What kind of content does people put on there? And that's when I started doing the digging, and I started reading, and I was like, this
like,
is the type of stuff
you
got to put up there. I said, okay. Because it was some people, I don't know how much time you spent on it, right? I haven't spent much time on it, but in the time that I did spend on it, like there's some people you can like subscribe to them for free. Like, you don't have to pay anything to subscribe.
I know Ashley Larry's on there.
But once you subscribe to them, then but what I was saying was there's people there that have content that you can subscribe to for free.
Yeah.
And then they have content that you pay for. And then there's the flip side of that is there people that you pay to subscribe to them, and then they give you a little bit of content, but then if you want additional content, you got to pay for that too.
So it's paid.
So I was like, okay, so this is a cash grab. So like on top of the fact that I pay I pay to be a subscriber of, so you're getting however much per month from me.
It's like paying for cable, and then you're going to charge me to watch movies.
Right.
Before they come out, right as they come out of the theaters.
Right. So to me, that model didn't make sense to me thinking about it from our show. So that's why I deleted our page.
But we get on Facebook Watch.
And I was like, yeah. So that's why I started just doing like maybe just a YouTube streaming or something like that. And then, tell people that you're streaming on YouTube or as IG Live. Yeah, IG Live was the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started using YouTube and IG Live and stuff like that for our shows. So, yeah, that's my OnlyFans story. Yeah. I still have an account. Every once in a while, I'll go and check to see. So that's my OnlyFans story. Don't worry about it.
So there's some NFL news I want to talk about, which is the Sean McDermott news. If some of our listeners haven't or have not heard, he told a story regarding the 9/11 hijackers. We discussed that just before we started recording. We were talking about how they came together for a common goal. And this has been verified by several other players and reported on by a guy who used to report for a couple of different teams. But he's had to go independent because, nobody really wants to pay for good reporting. So if you have $9.99, you can check him out. He is on, not Patreon. He is on, I'm trying to think of that website. where you can subscribe directly to somebody's writing. Substack. He is on Substack, and you can find that story on Twitter. And he was the first one to report it. And ESPN has been citing him as a source, and he has a couple more articles on there which are very interesting. And yeah, he's probably the reason why the Bills are tanking this year. It's kind of nuts. That, along with David Tepper, who basically had Frank Reich working with a bunch of different people that on the offense that he didn't want to hire. And they're the ones that have been ratting on him to the owner, which is why Frank Reich is no longer there. So it's going to be real interesting if the Panthers are trying to get Ben Johnson again, who turned down the job last year. He's from Carolina. So we will see. Along with the fact of Ant's guy, quarterback extraordinaire, Zack Wilson, is going to start for the Jets on Sunday, against the Texans, but really, really would rather not have to do that because he knows that they do not really want him to be the future of the franchise. But he's going to go out there anyway, behind that sorry line, and try to do what he can to get them a couple of dubs. What do you think about that? Do you think it's wrong that he doesn't want to go back out there?
I think it's wrong that he doesn't want to play, right? Without some kind of, like, it almost gives me the air of, he feels like he's a lame duck, like, here's the thing. He already knows that the starting quarterback on the Jets is Aaron Rodgers. It is not him. And he already knows that the opportunity for him to remain a Jet for the rest of his NFL career, or even just for the foreseeable future, lies in, him being a backup to Aaron Rodgers. And that's it, right? So to not want to play now, so when Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, he goes out there, he plays, he stinks up the joint, the Jets lose a ton of games, he gets blamed for it for, a vast majority of it, in addition to Hackett and everybody else. But the situation hasn't changed.
Hackett's one of the worst coordinators ever.
But what I'm saying is, for Wilson here, your situation is exactly the same. You're only playing because Aaron Rodgers is hurt. And you're only not playing because you haven't been good. If you were good, you'd still be playing. Nobody would have pulled you. You'd be the starting quarterback for the New York Jets by default because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers is hurt. So, realistically speaking, if you don't want to play now, what's changed? That's what would be my question to him.
Yeah, that's fair.
So my question to Zack Wilson would be, if you don't want to play now, my question to him is, well, what's changed? Right? Nothing has changed. Your situation is exactly the same as it was 10 weeks ago, 13 weeks ago when Aaron Rodgers went down. You're the starting quarterback for the foreseeable future until Aaron Rodgers comes back. And play well, and you'll continue to be starting. And since you haven't, you won't. And so, for him to not want to play now just doesn't make any sense to me, because
it can't get much worse.
It really can't, and nothing's changed.
And if he happens to win a game or two out of the last 5, then he can become a backup quarterback and ride this out for another 5 more years, make a couple million more bucks.
Exactly, right? What are your options? Your options are played out, and remain a backup quarterback for the Jets, or not, right? Play it out, win a couple of games, see how well you do, and maybe you can, make a couple of things happen and get yourself traded or whatever, go to another team, because I'm sure there's plenty of teams that need quarterbacks, as we can see in week 14. It's like 12 or 13 teams that are starting backup quarterbacks this week.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's not like there's not a wealth of quarterbacks or a wealth of teams that need quarterback help. So, play this out, figure it out, or, and you play it or you don't. And, good luck finding a team next year, because you're going to be labeled a quitter.
If Blake Bortles was still in the NFL, and Sanchez after what they did, and Matt Barkley, who was still in the league, and Colt McCoy who was starting last year towards the end for Arizona, until he finally got cut. I didn't even know he was still in the league until that happened. Zach Wilson has hope. Zach Wilson's got a shot. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very possible for him to stick around long enough to at least get a couple of Bortles seasons and, make some bread and actually improve as a QB. If he actually does the work and he has the athleticism and the physical ability, I think he just needs to be in a better system with a coach who knows how to use him better. And he hasn't had an offensive system that's really worked, honestly. And I say the same thing for Justin Fields and the Bears because he's a good passer. It's just this is the best year that they've had in terms of the offense actually moving all in the same direction between the receivers, the running backs, and everybody else.
But you know the difference is between Zack Wilson and Zack Wilson and Justin Fields. So I do see the correlation.
Drafted the same year, by the way.
Yeah, but the parallel is that Justin Fields keeps going out there. He keeps going out there. He keeps fighting for the opportunity. He keeps heading out there despite all the conversations that are happening around him. Zack Wilson seems to be impacted or affected emotionally or whatever by all of the negativity that's coming his way because the team is not winning and he's not playing well. And so you'll never hear, Justin Fields say, I don't want to play. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not going to happen. At least I don't expect it. So the fact that, like, this is happening with Zack Wilson is what I question him as a competitor, as an athlete, when you say you don't want to play.
Yeah. And speaking of competition, there's something that we didn't talk about last time, which was the NBA Cup, which we said we was going to get into. Because my father swears up and down, if you listen to the last episode, all y'all out there, that nobody cares, nobody pays attention. But I'd like to point out that the TV ratings for the first couple of rounds are back. The TV ratings for the NBA and the NBA Cup in-season tournament are up 93% year over year. So it may have been a gimmick, but people are paying attention. And it helps that the Lakers are one of the, favorite teams out west and even globally. And Bron's one of the most famous NBA players in the world, if not the most famous NBA player in the world. And people is paying attention, man. He was hooping. He beat him down on the Pelicans. I did not expect them to cover as easily as they did, to beat him by 40 points. I thought Zion was going to show up and do something, but he had a pretty disappointing career up until this point in terms of expectations. Although he's playing better this year than Wembanyama, I'll say that. Have you been watching those games?
The in-season tournament, I've definitely been watching those games. My favorite player to watch in the NBA right now, outside of, anybody that plays for the Knicks, is Tyrese Halliburton. And so everything that he's doing right now has been special and been fun to watch over the course of, this whole thing. They haven't lost, right? The cool thing is, like, the cool thing about this to me is that it seems that the players are taking this seriously. Yeah. Like, the players seem to want this. And and I did mention this during one of our shout outs when we were doing our shout outs at the end of one of our shows, like that, teams were being encouraged to, like, run the score up during the group stage because you needed to have a higher point differential. That's the reason why the Knicks got in. Make it in. Yeah, with a higher point differential than your opponents, even though you have the same record. So, I think that there's intrigue. The players are into it. My thoughts, maybe this is something. My only concerns, or my only, kind of disappointment about this. One was the courts. I think the courts are horrendous. But two, I understood why they did the courts. They wanted to make the in-season tournament feel different. So when you were watching an in-season tournament game, it felt different than a normal regular season game. So I got it. I just think you need to do something else. Just make all the courts the same color, like make all the courts black with the trophy inside, or something, something
that actually would look better. It would probably look better on TV too.
Yeah. The other thing was, the timing of this. There was some comments about, if you're like the Knicks, for instance, just using them as the example, right? They had to play the Bucks. They played the Bucks, aside from their regular season game, right? They had one in-season tournament game against the Bucks. They had the Bucks 4 times on their schedule, one of which being one of those those in-season tournament games. Well, the fact that they made it to the knockout stages means that they had to play the Bucks again in the knockout rounds. So they've had to play the Bucks 5 times, and by the end of the season they will have played the Bucks 5 times, and all 5 of those games will have counted against their regular season record. When if there was no in-season tournament, they would have only played them 4 times. I get that. My feeling on it is, I think the enjoyment of watching competition, as long as the players are into it, I'm fine with it. Once the players show less interest or less less willingness to really compete, then I'll probably check out of it. The way that I normally check out a basketball game before Christmas. But yeah, so it's been fun. It's been fun. It's been enjoyable. And I'm looking forward to the championship game.
I think it was smart for them to put this together the way that they did, because people were asking me were they going to have multiple in-season tournaments. I really think that they were just trying to capture more of the attention as college football faded away, and the NFL is getting into the playoff run. And they were like, everybody's team is clearly out of the playoffs are unlikely to make it. You can pay attention to the NBA team, and I don't know how confident these Saints fans are feeling, but if they Pelican fans too, and Zion's back and finally balling, you had something to root for.
Yeah, I mean, and they were smart enough to put the games on Tuesdays and Fridays. They would have the game played on those days because obviously those are not college football game days. They're not NFL game days. So you could, tune in. It gave you something to watch that was that was more than just a random, game between Houston and New Orleans. Nobody's watching that game, but because it's got a little bit of stakes tied to it, maybe more people will pay attention to see what happens, and they did. So.
I will say this: that Thursday game surprised me because Bailey Zappi. We're going to jump around a little bit this episode, but Bailey Zappi with the pass really showed up, and I'm surprised because Pittsburgh defense has been carrying them through most of it, and Trubisky didn't play so bad. He was able to run for one and throw for one, and I thought that's all it was going to take to beat the pass, considering how anemic their offense had been. But my man got 2 touchdown passes and a rushing one from Zeke, and that carried him through. So Belichick may not be done just yet, but he is trying to get that record. So,
had we picked this game, I would have. We normally don't pick Thursday games because we normally are recording on Thursday. But had we picked the game, I would have picked New England just because I didn't feel comfortable. I do not feel comfortable giving 6 points. The Pittsburgh Steelers giving 6 points to anybody anymore. It was the same line.
That's true.
As the Arizona game last week, and they lost that game. They found a way to lose that game. And Arizona is probably a better team than New England, even though I would say New England has a better defense than Arizona. But laying 6 points when there's really just there's no fluidity, there's no continuity to Pittsburgh's offense. They just seem to be out of sync. Even with Pickett, if Pickett was there, it wouldn't even have mattered. It doesn't seem to matter right now. I just think they're so out of sync that if there's a line, if the line's above 2.5, I'm probably going to go the other way if I'm picking a Pittsburgh game. Just because I don't expect them to win games by more than a field goal.
I will say this. I feel bad for everybody who took the under because nobody expected even that much offense out of either of those teams.
That was the surprise. Right, because the over-under in that game was 30.
Yeah.
And I think in some books it was 29. So I was like, people were basically saying, yeah, it's going to end 16-3. That was basically what people thought it was going to be. So the fact that both teams hit, what was it, 21-18, I think was the final score? Yeah. So the fact that, but that's crazy, right? The line was 30. 21-18 is 38. So 39. It still wasn't a big game. It still wasn't a big high-scoring game. It just came in higher than that. 39 points is still would still be the second lowest under, third lowest under.
It would be pretty bad, but it would be for those two teams. It would be way better than average.
Right, it's impressive, right? It's impressive that they finished. They got 39 points between the two of them.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
But everything's a trend until it isn't, as I like to say. All right,
Exactly.
we're gonna get into these games. Me and Malik both had pretty bad weeks. His was less bad as mine. He went 1-5 in the best bets. I went 0-5, and Ant went 4-1, so he caught up a little bit. But I am still in the lead. I'm at 62%. Ant's at 55. And Malik's at 53. So everybody who's been listening all season long, you are still very much up, up, up. If you've been paying attention to us. We're gonna get into this
Yep.
first game. Panthers at the Saints. Panthers are getting 6 points. It's going to be in New Orleans. The over-under is a very, very high 38.5 points. Malik, you watched the Saints play last week. Who do you got?
I did watch the Saints play last week. I was in the building when they played my Lions. It was an interesting game, to say the least. They, found themselves down 21 very early, in the first quarter, with some mistakes on offense that gave Lions some short fields. But they found a way to come back. They found a way to kind of claw their way back into the game. Part of it was the Lions giving away a lot of opportunities that maybe they shouldn't have. But the Saints showed some resolve. They mixed things up a little bit with Taysom Hill, and Derek Carr finally got things rolling a little bit. I think it was hilarious. Just as a note, I think it was absolutely hilarious. Um, when you're sitting in the stadium and you know how Taysom Hill and Carr switch in and out for each other. So as
Yeah.
Carr was coming out of the game and Taysom Hill was coming in, the fans were like, "Yay!" And then when Taysom Hill would run one play and then run back out, and they would boo when Carr was coming back in, it was hilarious. And somebody's even told me like this. That's like the first time it had happened that vociferously, like that people just really don't like Derek Carr, or they just love Taysom Hill. So that said, Carolina is still not a team that I want to give any points to at this point. I'm sorry, that I want to take with points. 6 points is still a bit high for me. I know Carr. It sounds like Carr is going to give it a go. I don't necessarily know why, because he did get his ass kicked, I guess, last week. And he had a concussion and his shoulder injury, and so on and so forth. But I'm gonna still lean New Orleans' way. It's not a best bet for me. I'll lean to them to cover the 6 points and win something like 24-17 or something like that. So I'll go Saints and the under.
I'm locking in the Saints because after just seeing Bryce Young's arm in that game, where they were at 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2 on his own 47-yard line and didn't even try to throw a Hail Mary, it lets me know that they don't have much faith in that offense, even though Frank Reich is gone. And whoever's in charge and has the reins now doesn't trust this guy to get the ball down the field. And I don't even know if they have the receivers to do it, but they keep counting on Mingo to do that. And the Saints aren't playing the Lions, and they will be able to keep the Panthers in front of them. Panthers don't have much of a run game. I would take, as a prop bet, I would take an anytime TD on Kamara. I think that's pretty much a lock. And I would expect their top wide receiver, I think Olave, if he's not hurt, I think he's expected to play this game. I would take the over on his yards, which is like 63.5 or something like that. So I would expect him to have a pretty good game. And then Taysom Hill anytime TD is pretty much a guarantee in this one. So I would put that in too. That actually seems to be the best bet. Forget those other two props, but I would take Taysom Hill anytime TD, passing or throwing. I think the odds are low. But yeah, I'm going to lock in the Saints on this one. They've been pretty good at home against sorry teams, and the Panthers are a sorry team.
I mean, the Saints scored 28 points last week against the Lions, and the Carolina Panthers have not scored 28 points in a game this season. So, that's take that for what it's worth. I mean, the Saints can score if everybody's healthy and and they're playing it at their expected level, they can score. And the Panthers have still not shown the ability to score the football yet, even though they've switched out a whole bunch of things. I just think they're just a mess. And but I am just interested in seeing whether or not Bryce Young can rebound next season.
Yeah. He should be a little bit better than that. All right, next we're going to be on the Lions and the Bears. I'm going to go first on this one. The Bears are currently getting 3.5 points on MGM. That's the line that we're using. I think it opened up at plus 4.5 for the Bears. The Bears at home against the spread are only 1-2 with 2 pushes. The Lions on the road are 5-1. This game is going to be outside. It's going to be one of the colder games played, but no rain, not really any super windy weather. It's early December in Chicago. Because it's that plus 3.5 and the way the Lions defense has been going, the Bears are coming off their bye week. So they have an extra week of rest and an extra week of preparation. I think that's going to help everybody get healthier. They could win this game, but I find that unlikely. The Lions can literally, actually, they can't put the division away with this one. The fact that they get to 10 games before Green Bay can, and Green Bay is only at 6-6, it would make it damn near impossible for Green Bay to catch it. Green Bay would have to win out, and the Lions would have to lose 2 more games, and that seems unlikely. I really don't like to pick against my team, but I think the Lions should beat them by more than 4 points. I expect the Lions to win this game by a touchdown, but I do expect this game to go over that 43 points. So that's going to be my bet for this one, is the over 43, but I'm going to take the Lions covering that 3.5. Yeah.
Wow. You know what's funny? I'm leaning Chicago.
I don't think we can cover it because I don't even know if everybody's going to be healthy, but unless there's injuries that I don't know about for the Lions linebackers, then that might give me more confidence picking the Bears to cover. I'll be happy if I'm wrong, though.
I mean, yeah, sure. On the Lions side, Frank Ragnow, the center, he hurt himself in that game against, and the only reason I'm touching the center is because he's a Pro Bowler, All Pro level player, and he's probably the best player on the Lions offensive line. He's going to be out for the game, and they may be down one of their linebackers, but they're getting back another one, so that the linebacker room should be pretty healthy. But the reason I'm leaning the Bears here with 3.5 is because the Lions have not shown an ability to hold down running quarterbacks. And running quarterbacks have been problematic for the Lions over the course of the season. You know, not just quarterbacks that can run, quarterbacks that are mobile. I would say it that way. And we know what Justin Fields can bring. We know what Justin Fields can bring on that side of the football and what he can do to a defense. He can tire them out, and he's going to be their running game. The thing because the fact of the matter is, like, the Lions have been good against the run, except against quarterbacks that run. So I think this game stays really close. I think this game stays within a score for the most part. Throughout most of the game, I would be surprised if the Lions and Jared Goff and that offense is able to get a 2 or 3 score lead in this game and like kind of coast it out. I do think the David Montgomery factor is going to be big. I mean, he's returning back to Chicago for the first time since he was a Bear there. And so because the Lions are a team built for running the football and built for, built for this type of play in this type of December weather, I do think that they should win the game. But I see this being a field goal game. I see this being a game that's, maybe, like, to your point, like maybe 28-25, 28-26, something like that, where it's coming down to the wire and these two teams, are really fighting. I think the Bears defense has played, a little bit better over the course of the past few games. They're coming off of their bye, so, there's things to play for. I would not be surprised to see the Lions or the Bears jump out quickly and then just kind of slug it out for the last 3.5 quarters. So I like the hook here. I'm going to take Chicago. I'm not going to best bet it, but I'm going to take Chicago to cover the number, if not win it outright.
All right. You know what? The Bears defensive line should be healthier. And I will say this. I like how Gervon Dexter is playing in the middle now. Montez Sweat and Ngakoue have been getting much, much better as the season goes on. I don't think Ngakoue is going to come back next year. I don't know. But I will say this. For our Oldham Bears fans out there that are saying we need to move on from Fields, the main reason why they're saying that is just the fact that last year of his rookie deal, 3-weight scale. and I don't want to pay the guy. But realistically, you draft Caleb Williams first overall, you're starting all over again. And that's not something I want to do. I think this team's moving in the right direction. I think they've locked up a real pass rusher with Montez Sweat. And they're going to have to pay that corner, Jalen Johnson. My man is playing real well. So if he can, what?
No, go ahead. I'll just let you finish my question.
If he can keep Amon-Ra St. Brown to under 100, I think the Bears have a shot. But it's Sam Laporta that really I think we're going to have issues with because we don't have any cover linebackers that can stick with him. So Eddie Jackson is going to have his work cut out for him, and that's where I really see the advantage for the Lions. Laporta working the middle of the field. And what are you going to say?
No, I just wanted to kind of double down on the point that you were making about Justin Fields and rebuilding. If the expectation, based off of everything that we've been hearing, is that Matt Eberflus is no longer the head coach, and they bring in a new head coach, like say for instance, Eric Bieniemy, right? Because we did hear about him potentially being a candidate for the job. Usually that goes hand in hand with a new coach and new quarterback, right? So like, would you be surprised, but would you be expecting a quarterback change at that point? Because I also think that Justin Fields has some value as a trade target, even if he's not he's not going to be the quarterback of the Bears. Like he's definitely a trade target for a team that is quarterback starved, that needs to infuse that level of energy, that level of athleticism into their team. So what do you think about that? If they wind up changing the coach, do you think that more or less of a chance of them keeping and losing Fields?
I think if they bring in a coach like Bieniemy, I don't imagine Bieniemy wants to start over with a brand new QB. And I think he'll be able to design an offense that'll help get the best out of Fields. But I will say this: if they decide to get rid of Eberflus, and because they win like 3 out of these last 5 games and end up winning, they end up going 7-10, which shows a huge improvement from last year, considering they only won 3 games, even though he was putting up numbers towards the end. It'll show them like we can build off of this, but they get rid of the head coach. I imagine because this GM didn't draft him. So if he brings in a new head coach, that head coach may want his own quarterback. So I imagine if they get rid of Eberflus, they're going to have a new Caleb Williams will be a Bear. Now, a lot of Bears fans are saying, I want to trade down. We get Maserati Mars. And then now we got an amazing offense because he's a generational talent wide receiver. He can get open whenever he wants. And he's on that team. Man, him, Fields, and DJ Moore, that's a problem. And now I'm not even, we'd be competing with the Lions for the division, and we'd be clearly ahead of the Packers, considering their, receiver team. Point blank period. I think that's where I see it.
I think you'd have a better receiver room than the Lions do. The Lions are.
Yeah, because you'd have 2 number 1 receivers.
Yeah.
And Jameson Williams, he is fast as hell, but he is not as good of a route runner as I thought. What he was doing in college was just like line up and run past him, which works. And you can do that in the pros. You just got to refine the route running a little bit, and he's healthy now. So I think he'll get you all.
I know we stayed on this game for a while. It's like the Lions receivers have tons of potential, but they haven't produced yet. And I think that Marvin Harris.
You know a lot about these teams. This is low key at NFC North and AFC East podcast. So the teams we follow. NFC East not as much, but we know those 2 divisions real well. And the AFC South. Next up, we got Ants, Jets, Texans at Jets. Jets are getting 3.5. Texans 7-5. They won another game. They're tied with the Colts for the AFC South. They're in the playoffs right now because the Steelers lost. I'm gonna go real quick. I'm gonna lock in the Texans to beat up on the Jets. I'll lay those 3.5. The over/under is 33. I guess they expect the Jets to hold this team down, and they're gonna win 13-3, 13-6. But either way, I'm taking the Texans. Stroud's good for 2 TDs. I think they're gonna win.
Yeah, we're in lock there. Houston, I'm gonna lock this. This is gonna be my first lock of the week. We just had a conversation about the Jets' struggles and their situation with respect to the the situation with Zack Wilson and the starting quarterback position, everything that's happening there, and you've got Aaron Rodgers talking, and people reacting to that, and there's just there's a lot of noise around the Jets right now, and it's unfortunate because this was a team back in August that everybody said, look out for, right? This was a team that people were, penciling in for a long playoff run. And so to see them at the point that they're at now, 4-8, and 4-8 against the spread, I'm sorry, 4-7 against the spread, this is not really not what they were expecting. So I think Houston rolls here. I think the only thing that I'm a little concerned about is obviously Houston lost Tank Dell, who was their wide receiver one. I mean, if you want to be honest, I don't think they had a wide receiver one that they really speak to, but if they did have one, it was Tank Dell. So the fact that he got injured and is out for the remainder of the season, I'm sure that's going to have an impact on just kind of the way that they flow, and maybe the offense plays it a little bit closer than maybe you expected. This line opened up at 6, and so it opened up much higher. So at 3.5, I think you're getting a pretty good deal to take the Texans here. So I would take the Texans in the under because of the concerns about what their offense is going to look like. But I think they can definitely cover the 3.5 one too.
I think the Texans are well prepared. Will Anderson's making a lot of good plays for the Texans. The only thing that may be a factor to keep this game really low scoring is the fact that weather's going to be about 44 degrees and 100% chance of rain. So it's going to be raining from New England, they already played. So all day Sunday, it's going to rain from New England all the way down to Baltimore. So all of those games are going to be affected by it. So that may be something, but I still expect Stroud to get a couple of passes off and make some plays. And
I would be worried if I didn't think Stroud's got a pretty strong arm. I think he can whip it in the wind pretty well.
I haven't played in Ohio in the Midwest. It's not like he's used to that weather. And I know Texas is, Houston is a nice weather city, but it does get colder there than it is, and kind of windy as well. Next up, we got the Bengals.
At Houston, right? Yeah, they're indoors, right?
Is it? Or oh yeah, you're right. Reliance Stadium is indoors. They got a dome, so you got to work.
Yeah.
Colts at Bengals. Bengals are 6-6. Jake Browning got them a win. The Colts are going to be without Jonathan Taylor again, who had thumb surgery. If he's lucky, he'll be back for them in the playoffs. They're 7-5. This is essentially an elimination. Whoever wins this game is still in the hunt for the playoffs, and whoever loses this game is out of it. Whoever wins this, Colts can either be 8-5, or the Bengals can be 7-6. The Bengals are -2. The over/under is 44.5. Malik, who do you got?
So the Colts were an interesting one. They were interesting. Both of these teams were really interesting last week. Both of these teams were supposed to lose those games. The Titans were supposed to beat the Colts, and everybody expected the Jaguars to stomp the Bengals with Mr. Jake Browning there. And so both of these teams were surprising winners last week. I'm sure they messed up a whole bunch of was it survivor pools or whatever those things are called, eliminator pools, whatever those things are called.
They messed me up.
I'm sure they messed up a lot of people on both sides of the coin here. So it's really hard to tell what's going to happen here. I lean towards the Bengals primarily because they're at home and because I just still don't fully trust what I'm seeing from Mr. Minshew in terms of can he replicate this over and over and over again. So if you get this at 1.5 or 2, I like the Bengals. Anything over 3 or 3.5, I would take the Colts just because I feel like it's gonna be a close game, potentially low scoring. But I think that the expectation is, that Browning is not going to, complete 32 of 37, probably again anytime soon. Indy's defense is 27th in points allowed, at just over 24.5 points per game that they give up. So Indy's defense ain't great, and if Cincinnati's even a step less than they were against Jacksonville, they're still, they can still score 20 plus points in this game. So I would take Cincinnati, and I would play the over because I don't think either one of these defenses scares me at all.
The only thing about that is Cincinnati has a better pass rush, so that's why I'm taking Cincinnati. I think they can win the game by a field goal. They were able to do it last week. I think they can do it again at home for the Colts, especially without Taylor. That's going to be a huge, huge downside. They got a much better secondary than the Colts in my opinion. They should be able to cover this Browning versus Gates play. So he wasn't outstanding, but he was good enough. Next up, we got another interesting one. AFC South leading Jacksonville Jaguars going to the AFC North. Cleveland Browns. The Browns are -3 at home. This is one of the lowest over-unders of the league, 33.5 points. Malik, who you got?
Yeah, it's surprising that this is as low as it is. Both of these teams are winning records. Like, both of these teams, if the playoffs started today, would be in, if I'm not mistaken. They'd both be,
You're 100% right on that.
Yeah, I think the Browns would be a wild card. Jacksonville would win the division. I think the interesting thing here is obviously Trevor Lawrence is not likely to play. Him being out and Jacksonville being on the road probably has me leaning a little bit towards Cleveland. But Cleveland's situation they're not in a great spot when it comes to their offense right now, because they have a lot of questions around the quarterback position. But Jacksonville is without Trevor Lawrence, and the backup CJ Beathard showed up on the injury report as well. So they may be down to their third string quarterback going against the Cleveland defense that's still one of the top groups in the entire NFL. So if that's the case, yeah, exactly. So if that's the case, I'm again leaning towards Cleveland here. It's still a small enough number that I don't feel like it's just really out of the realm of them winning this one outright. A little worried about the fact that Amari Cooper may not play. He's in a concussion protocol, so take a look at that. But I think that the combination of Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, and whoever they get back there, quarterback, should be more than enough to take care of business and take care of the home field. So I'll take Cleveland and the under.
I'm locking in Cleveland. Etienne's hurt. Their starting left tackle is battling a hamstring injury. Brenton Walker-Little. Folorunso Fatukasi, their starting left defensive tackle, he is out. Tyson Campbell's hurt. Trey Herndon is hurt. Christian Braswell, their other corner, is hurt. Andre Cisco, their free safety, is hurt. Even their kick returner, Dearness Johnson, is hurt. He's the backup runner. So they got a lot of injuries at key positions, and Christian Kirk is also out. He will be out for the rest of the season, I believe, with a high ankle sprain. So you don't get your starting quarterback, and you don't have one of your best wide receivers. So unless Calvin Ridley is going to destroy the Cleveland Browns by himself, and this team still has a really good pass rush, and they're playing in Cleveland and not in Jacksonville with weather, which is much better, I'm going to lay those 3 points, and I'm going to take the Browns, and I'm going to lock this one in. I think it's going to be easy. Next up, we got the Rams at the Ravens. The Rams are 6-6. The Ravens are 9-3. They're coming off of a bye week. The Ravens are currently -7.5. They open up the week a little bit lower at -6.5, I think, or -7. That extra hook makes sense because it's probably going to even out the betting on both sides. But I've been really high on the Ravens against bad teams. They tend to play down to the level of their competition. With another week of rest, them to be able to work on their offense a little bit. I'm going to go first on this one, and I think the Ravens are going to beat them down on the Rams. I'm not locking it in, but I definitely expect this to be over. It's going to be a very rainy game. Once again, they're playing in Baltimore outdoor stadium. About 48 degrees, 45 degrees. It's a 1:30 game. Rain the entire time. I'm taking the Ravens. Much better run team, much better defense. Best defense in the league right now, and they're mostly healthy, so kind of counting on them to win this one. Kind of put the position with. Who you got?
I'm taking both. This is going to be my second lock of the week. I'm taking Baltimore in the over here. I'm going to say something to you that's very shocking. That's going to be very, very shocking when you hear it if you didn't already know it, Ace.
What's that?
The Baltimore Ravens in Week 14 are the healthiest team in the NFL. That is not normal for this team.
Wow.
Over the last few years. pretty much during the entirety of Lamar Jackson's tenure. Now, Lamar did show up on the injury report on he didn't practice on like Wednesday or Thursday because with an illness, but it doesn't sound like that's anything serious. It sounds like he just needed the rest and he'll be back. But if you look at this Baltimore lineup, like the bye week could not have come at a better time for them. They've gotten healthy. It's December. This is the time when they would normally kind of fade away or start to falter a little bit, and they're as strong as they've ever been. So I think this was really strategic on their part because remember they went over to was it London? I believe they played one of the London games.
They did, yeah.
And they elected to not take that week, take the game, the week after that London game as their bye week. Of course, that's when they came in, bludgeoned my Lions. But the fact that they did that, they extended their bye week out a week, and additionally, and got to the point where now they're extremely healthy. And a healthy Baltimore team, even though the Rams have been much better than advertised, and to me are a team that's gonna challenge for a playoff position. I think they're 6-6 right now, so there's expectation that they're going to be challenging for the playoffs all the way through because the NFC is not nobody's going to run away from them in the NFC, with the exception of San Francisco probably. But this is not the game for them. This is a West Coast team going to the East Coast. Stafford has a great arm and he can take care of business from that perspective. He can still throw the ball with all of them, with anybody, but I don't believe there's going to be much sledding for Kyron Williams in the running game. I think Stafford's going to have to throw a bunch, and throwing against the Baltimore Ravens defense and the pass rush that they can bring is not a good recipe for victory. So I'm going to take Baltimore to win this one pretty handily. I think 7 is a bit. I think 7.5. I think this game goes. I think they win by at least 10. So I'm going to take Baltimore and the over, and I'm locking this one in.
Closest win Baltimore's had the entire season was when they were at Arizona right before Halloween, and they won 31-24, and that was on the road. The fact that they're home, I think they got a really good shot to cover this. Every game they've had at home, they've won by at least 10 points or more. Actually, 14 points at home. So it kind of bodes well. Actually, I take that back. They lost one game in overtime to the Indianapolis Colts.
That was a Colts game, yep.
In week 3. So it was a long time ago, and this is a much, much different game. Battle for the NFC South. They should have a committee decide who gets in for this one. Bucks, Falcons. Worst game to watch the week, but I guess if you're from Atlanta, you got to cheer for somebody. Falcons are -2. Bucks are +2. I like the Bucks on this one because I really do not believe in the Falcons. The Falcons are pretty good at home. They have actually covered more games at home than they haven't, which is kind of surprising to me. Actually, I take that back. Their record at home is 4-2. That's what it is. Their record at home is 4-2, but it's the reverse in terms of covering spread. So 2-4. The fact that they only need to win this game by a field goal, this game could go either way. But I'm taking Baker Mayfield, who seems to be a more complete quarterback, is less prone to turnovers, and much better decision-making under pressure. If the Falcons can even get him. Bad news is Tristan Wirfs is out, so their starting left tackle is out, one of their best offensive line players. But their starting center is healthy, and they still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin finding ways to get the ball. As long as they can scheme up some defense and generate a turnover or two, I think the Buccaneers should be able to win this. I'm not locking this in, but I feel pretty strongly that the Bucs are going to take this one. And Mike Evans is going to go over probably 60 yards for this game as well, so that's a good one. Over-under is 41. This game can be super high or super low, but I like the Bucs getting points on the road. Yeah, Malik.
I'm going the other way here. As confidently as you feel about Tampa Bay, that's how confident I feel about Atlanta in this situation. In a divisional game at home against a Tampa Bay team that they should have beaten in that game against them in Florida some weeks back. Now, if you remember that game, there were, I believe, 3 Desmond Ridder turnovers inside the red zone, inside the Tampa Bay red zone in that game, which basically, destroyed them. So, if he just doesn't turn the ball over, Atlanta probably wins that game. And we know he's much better at home, just like most quarterbacks. He's much better at home than he is on the road. Um, the Bucks have a lower than average defense against the pass, and have allowed quarterbacks to throw for an average of 295 yards per game since their bye in week 5. So they're not really good against the pass. That doesn't mean that Desmond Ritter's going to light them up and throw for 350 yards or anything like that. But I think that means that at the very least he'll be able to find his weapons in the passing game, and he still has a ton of very interesting weapons in Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Kyle Pitts and and all those guys. So I think that he should be fine in terms of finding those guys and putting the game out of reach for Tampa Bay. I still think. I mean, you mentioned Baker Mayfield getting better, and I don't disagree with that. But I still think he's a bit prone to throwing interceptions. To me, this is almost a pick'em game. It can go either way. I'll take Atlanta just because they're at home, because I feel like they're a little bit better on at their own on their own turf than the Bucks are on the road. So I'll take Atlanta. I'll go with the under here. Not locking this as a best bet, but I think Younghoe Koo. If you can get a prop bet on Younghoe Koo for over 1.5 field goals, take it.
Kicker
I think he's going to get at least 3 field goals here. I see at least 3 Younghoe Koo field goals. Younghoe Koo is going to be the difference here. I'm telling you.
That's why they call it football, folks. You got to count on the kicker. I love it. He is pretty money. I'm not going to lie. He is my fantasy kicker. Sadly, that's one of my best players. Why I'm not going to make the playoffs in damn near any of my leagues. Just too many injuries. Too many injuries.
Too many across the board. Same here.
I'm down bad. Anyways, Vikings 6-6, Raiders 5-7. The Raiders are getting 3 points at home. The Vikings are -3. I'm locking in the Raiders at home. They've been playing much stronger, much better. They are not coming off of a bye, but the Vikings are, so they have a little bit more rest. But the Raiders being a dome team and having a little bit of time to prepare, I think people understand how to. Justin Jefferson is coming back. But it's his first game back. So, you know what? I'm switching that. I'm taking the Vikings. I think that's a much more solid team to take. And I'm going to switch that just off of Justin Jefferson. And the fact they gave him an extra week to come back. And I think the over looks pretty good, too, at 48.5. Him added to that team, I think they're going to win this game. They're going to be 7-6. Another close loss for the Raiders. They're going to lose by the team.
Is this still a lock for you? Because you were locking in the Raiders.
It's going to be my third lock on the Vikings. I forgot that Justin Jefferson was.
It's your fourth.
No, I had the Vikings.
You have the Browns, Saints, and Texans. So
Browns,
far.
Saints, Texans. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. Yeah, and I'm gonna lock this one in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I lean this way as well. Minnesota with you here. I'm still a little bit concerned about the Josh Dobbs situation. I don't think he's, I think the what is it, like the shine is off of the car now, right?
Like the bloom is off the rose.
Yeah, it's
the mustard is off the hot dog.
There was conversations during that week that they had off, potentially going to the backup quarterback. I can't remember the guy's name. But that didn't happen. They decided to stick with Dobbs for the remainder of the season, or at least for this week, to see what's going on there. I think it's going to be really difficult for him to get early chemistry with Jay Jettis, who's much less of a just throw it up and I'll get it type of receiver, but much more of a in rhythm, runs routes, And so I feel like it might be take a couple of weeks for them to get on track. Although obviously Jefferson can absolutely fly, and he can take one to the house pretty easily.
Because of the bye week, I think he's actually been working out with the team for a while, so that's giving them a little bit more chance to get which is why I switched my pick.
That would be good too. Yeah, that would be good too. That's of course that's always a possibility. But of course, playing in games is much different from playing on practice. So, I think the Raiders are going to just run the football and try to keep this game close, and that's why I want to take them if they're getting points on this. I think they will run the ball. They will they'll just lean on Josh Jacobs and their rushing attack. And when they're on defense, they will do their best to keep everything in front of them and not allow the Vikings to get them deep. If Kirk Cousins was playing in this game, and then I would lock in Minnesota all the way. But I like Vegas to keep the game close. I think this is like a 1 or 2 point win by Minnesota. So if I'm getting 3, I'll take it. Give me Vegas and the under.
Wow. Okay. Next up, we got the Seahawks at the 49ers. This is the biggest spread of the week and the second largest over-under. 4 o'clock game going down on the West Coast. Over 46.5 is the over-under. Seahawks are the biggest underdogs this week, plus 525 on the money line, plus 13 points currently. 6-6 Seahawks put up a lot of points, but failed to beat the Cowboys last Thursday. The Niners are 9-3, just beat them down on Philly. I don't know if that took a lot out of them, but shockingly, at home, San Francisco's only been 3-2 against the spread on the road. Seattle's been 4-2. Overall this season, Seattle has actually covered more games than San Francisco has. They covered last week against a much better team than everybody thought defensively. San Francisco has really good linebackers. I'm talking a lot about this game so far, but I'm going to have to take the Seahawks. This is just too many points. I think they can keep it within 10 points. I see how they will be able to win. I see how they'll be able to keep it close. This is straight up a rout. These teams over the past 15 years have really grown to not like each other. The Seahawks were going to the Super Bowl and the Niners were going. The Seahawks got it up in the big game. The Niners have lost twice. DK Metcalf is a beast, and Geno's been able to find new ways to get the ball. And Kenneth Walker III's coming back. So I think the Seahawks have a lot going in their favor. And the Niners just came up with a very tough game. Not saying they'll definitely be a close one, but it'll be closer than most people think. So I'm going to take the Seahawks. Yeah.
In a not normal thing for me, I'm locking in the Niners here. Remember, these two teams played 2 weeks ago. They played on Thanksgiving.
They did.
And San Francisco beat Seattle at home, 31-13.
Yes.
It was an 18-point victory at home.
Yes.
In Seattle. This is, to me, trending like San Francisco. I could definitely see Seattle playing well enough to cover this number, and they played well enough to cover the number against a good Dallas team last week. Even though they didn't win, they had an opportunity to win that game. But Dallas isn't. San Francisco ain't Dallas. San Francisco's not going to let you. We saw this against Philly. When you give them, if you make any mistakes against this team, they will capitalize and they will score points on you. Brock Purdy is, I was starting to hear the conversations about MVP candidacy, which I don't know how honestly true that might be. I mean, he's been really good when he's been out there. He's still like, I think there's still that whole myth about this team that it's not myth. It's actually a factual number that when the combination of Purdy, Deebo, McCaffrey, and Trent Williams are all on the field together, they haven't lost a game yet. Like when they all play and finish a game, they have not lost a game yet. So if you believe that that's going to happen, then you probably believe San Francisco is going to win this game. They're the best team in the NFL. And Seattle is game. Seattle will be up there. They will do their best to try their hardest to get a victory. And I think that they can keep it. I think they can keep it within 2 scores. But I think those 2 scores will be touchdowns. So I'm going to go ahead and take San Francisco in the over, and I'm going to lock this in because, why the hell not, right? So I'm going to lock this as a best bet for me. This will probably be the game that I watch between this one and KC Buffalo, which we haven't yet discussed. But this will probably be one of the games I'll be checking in on the 4 o'clock hour just to see what's going on there. So, yeah, San Francisco and the over, and this is my third lock of the week.
I think KC Buffalo is probably going to be the game of the week, but Seattle 49ers, they got their primetime slot on Thanksgiving. I don't know. I do feel good that I live in New England because there's not going to be a game on probably in the morning, so I'll probably get 2 games at the 4 o'clock hour on free. CBS and Fox. So I'm hoping it'll be that one instead of the Broncos and the Chargers. Keep showing a lot of Broncos games here. For some reason.
Nice.
No, it's not nice. I don't like seeing the Broncos. I'm a big Broncos, but it is nice to see Russ be better. Bills, Chiefs. Bills getting one. Over under is 48.5. Largest over under the week. Neither of these teams are favorites on the money line, which is kind of wild. Bills are 6-6. Chiefs are 8-4. Bills got a win last week. A lot of stories coming out. We talked about Sean McDermott's motivation tactics and who's really in charge. I think he threw Ken Dorsey under the bus, and if his team doesn't make it to the playoffs and make it to the AFC or even the Super Bowl, he will be out on the street. So he's coaching for his life. Chiefs look kind of weak. Their defensive line has been getting a lot of push. I don't know what's going on with the Bills' offensive line and their run game, but Chiefs can run the ball well with Isaiah Pacheco. I think they can win this game. There's been a lot of drops from their receivers, but I'm leaning Chiefs as they're at home, and the Bills always find a way to lose. You know, the game will go to overtime, and the Bills beat them, and the Chiefs will beat them in overtime. That is what I'm counting on. So, go Chiefs. Sorry, Bills. It is what it is. Yeah, Malik.
Yeah, I'm with you here. This is lock number 4 for me, Chiefs, and the under here, especially because this number is so low. There's a lot of talk about, I think a lot of the talk about wasn't able to watch. I was actually driving home from the Saints game, the Saints and Lions game last Sunday, and I was listening to the KC Green Bay game on the radio. Like people still listen to football on the radio. It was great. But then I came home and I watched the game all the way through. And truth be told, if not for that MVS, pass interference, game might have ended different. The game might have ended different if that pass interference was called. Not to say that the Chiefs deserved to win the game, but they definitely could have won that game.
They got robbed.
It's a different situation. So, I think that the conversation or the talks about KC potentially, just not being as good a team as they were, although it's true. I mean, they're still trying to figure things out offensively, but their defense is as good as it's ever been, for the Chiefs, and is still, managing things in a way that allows Patrick Mahomes and the rest of the guys on offense to just figure things out. And when you're talking about Patrick Mahomes trying to figure things out, and you're only laying a point or 2 points in some books, that's a number I'm more than comfortable with. So I'm locking in KC here to win this game outright at home, cover the number, and trust me, if KC wins this game, and as I expect, things are going to start looking really interesting in Buffalo, because Sean McDermott may need more than 9/11 references to keep his job. He may need to start referencing some other cataclysmic events. Maybe you start talking about Oppenheimer next, so he can keep his
He's gonna be moving.
So he can keep his job. He's gonna have to start channeling somebody much more much more traumatic, some much more traumatic experiences to keep his job. So we'll see. But yeah, KC in the over, and I'm locking this
in. All right. Next up, we got the Broncos and the Chargers. The last of the 4:30 games. Broncos are 6-6. That Chargers were 5-7. Chargers barely got a terrible win over New England last week. 6-0 game. Over under for this game is 44. Broncos are getting 2.5 points. I am going to take the Broncos. I think they're the better team. They keep finding ways to win. The fact they're 6-6, and still got a good shot at actually, making the playoffs. They're chasing down the Chiefs ever so slowly, but I do not think they will catch them. They have a chance of passing. With a win this week, they can pass the Steelers. Texans are probably going to win. The Bengals probably going to win, so they need to keep pace with them for that last wild card spot. They're going to sneak in and come get the 7th spot. You can see where I'm leaning with this one. So I'm taking the Broncos. I think their defense is playing much, much better. Patrick Surtain Jr. is hurt. I don't know if he's going to play. The Chargers pass defense is terrible. So I'm counting on that to get Russell Wilson cooking. Give me the Broncos. Yeah, move. And I did not like this, but I do just like the Broncos.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Broncos getting 2.5 points as well. I think it's safe to say, we got to remember the Chargers scored 6 points against the 2-10 at the time, 2-9 New England Patriots. They were only able to score 6 points against them. And before you start to talk about the fact that the Patriots defense is pretty good, and that you're not surprised, The thing that surprises me the most about the Chargers thus far, you look at the statistics from that game, is they can't run the football. Their offense is pretty much Justin Herbert drops back and throws the ball to Keenan Allen,
which is
and
wild.
that's it.
They got Eckler.
If that doesn't work, they can't score. And that's basically what New England did. They took away Keenan Allen, and they took away all of his, a lot of his production, and the Chargers couldn't do anything with it. I think that Patrick Surtain the second can be a pest to Keenan Allen and can make a lot of things very difficult for that offense. So if Justin Herbert and the offense is not going to lean on their star running back to help win these football games, I don't see a reason why Denver can't stay right with them and potentially win this game outright. I like Denver on the money line here. I think what are they? They're plus 120 on the money line, so you can actually get plus money here on the money line if you go to Denver. I think Denver can win this game outright, and to your point, push themselves above teams like Pittsburgh and Buffalo in the playoff chase. And so I'm going to pick Denver here as well. I'm not going to lock it in because they are on the road. It's completely possible that that loss that they had last week against what did they lose to? Houston might have derailed things a little bit for them. But I think that Sean Payton, Russell Wilson is a veteran team that knows what's at stake here and knows that they need to get it done and will get it done. In LA against a team that's, in my opinion, reeling in the last few weeks of Brandon Staley's tenure there as a head coach. So I'm going to take Denver and the under.
Like that pick. Next up, we got the Eagles at the Cowboys. Sunday Night Football. The Eagles keep getting all these primetime games. They are 10-2. They're going to Cowboys Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Cowboys are 9-3 with this win. The Cowboys would be leading the division and also the NFC. Cowboys are -3.5 at home. The over-under is 52. I'm apt to take the under. I do not see the Eagles or the Cowboys being able to run very well on each other, which I think is going to make it very much a passing game. I know that Jalen Hurts is actually hurt. I expect A.J. Brown to have a really big bounce back game because I don't think there's really anybody the Cowboys can cover him one-on-one. They play terrible some coverage. The Eagles are getting 3.5 points. I'm locking in the Eagles as my last lock. You give me 3.5 for the Eagles versus the Cowboys, and the way the Eagles put on the Cowboys earlier this year, I'm kind of shocked that they're getting the points. It feels a bit disrespectful and kind of an overreaction to what happened, and I'm just kind of shocked by that. The Eagles are 4-1-1 on the road, and you're giving me points against the Cowboys. I mean, I get they played them, a long time ago. Well, not that long ago. They played them about 5 weeks ago, and they beat them. They beat them 28-23 at home, right? And they were -3 then. So I expect more of the same. Maybe they'll get 31-24, but I expect them to win by a touchdown. And you're already giving me 3.5, so I'm definitely going to jump on the Eagles, jump on this early before that spread goes down. Yeah, Malik.
And you said you're locking this, right? This is your last lock?
This is my 5th lock of the week.
Okay. I'm going the other way, but I'm not going to lock this. I watched that Eagles game, and I saw a team that just looked gassed. They looked tired. They'd won a fair number of these games. Remember there was this gauntlet of games that they had to go through. Everybody was looking at, was circling for them. After their Washington game, they had Miami, then they had Washington, in Washington, which actually wound up being a pretty well played game for both sides. And they wound up getting a push in that, even though they were 7-point favorites. Then they had Dallas, which you mentioned. They had KC, and then Buffalo. And all of those games ended up being within one score. Dallas was within 5, like you said. KC, they won by 4 in KC. Buffalo, they won by 3. That game was I believe that was the overtime game when Hurts scored the rushing touchdown in overtime to end that one. And it seemed like they were just trying to figure out ways to win, or they were figuring out ways to win every week, and they were winning these close games by the skin of their teeth. And then San Francisco came in and bludgeoned them. And San Francisco I don't think San Francisco is 30 points better than the Eagles. I think they got an Eagles team that was tired, that has been through the ringer, that has played a ton of games in the last few weeks, and a ton of very, very difficult games against very, very difficult opponents. And that's probably where, and that's Dallas catching them. This is Dallas catching them at the right time. So I'm gonna lean Cowboys here. I think the Cowboys have won what, 4 straight. They haven't lost since that Eagles loss.
That's
They beat the
correct.
Giants, Carolina, Washington, Seattle. So they haven't lost a game since then. So they're gonna be looking for some payback here.
But they
And
also
they're
haven't played
relatively
anybody with this good of an offense and defense on the same squad.
no, they haven't. No, they definitely haven't. There's still concerns over Jalen Hurts' knee and whether or not he's healthy enough to be out there. He should still be out there. We know that Dallas has a pretty good defense, and they can get after the quarterback with Micah Parsons and Lawrence and the rest of those guys. So I think Dallas, plays things pretty well in this one and figures out a way to win by I'd say 6 points. So I'm gonna lay the 3.5, and I'll pick Dallas, but I won't best bet it just because we know, as you mentioned, we know that it's a rivalry game and Philly could absolutely find a way to win as they had been doing over the course of the season. So I'll take the three. I'll give the 3.5 though here.
All right. Monday night football. We got a doubleheader. Keep forgetting about that. Both games are going to be on. Well, actually, one game's going to be on ABC. It's weird that they're playing these both in the Eastern time zone. I figured they would have flexed the game that
Yeah.
way on the West Coast. But Packers at Giants. The Giants are getting 6.5 points. The over/under is 37. The Giants are huge money line favorites at home. Once again, the weather is not going to be too rainy, but turf field, turf monster is going to be taking some people down. The Packers have been playing much better. I don't know if Tom DeVito is going to start. Supposedly, they're going to be back with not PJ Walker. Good Lord. Tyrod Taylor. Sorry about that, Tyrod Taylor. You are not PJ Walker. Tyrod Taylor is supposed to be back under center, and he's a really good quarterback. And I think if he can get something going with Jalen Hyatt, or maybe they'll stick with Tommy DeVito. I'm not so sure. But this team has been playing better as of late. They got a pretty good defensive line. Packers are still without Aaron Jones. They have a lack of a run game. So it's going to make them pretty easy to scheme against. And maybe Matt LaFleur will be able to scheme something up, but I don't see an advantage the Packers have in terms of skill talent. Jordan Love is playing better, but he's still not playing great. And the Giants against 6.5 at home. I'm leaning towards the Giants. I'm not being a homer, even though I'm from New York. They're in Jersey. They're not even at 500 yet, but I think the Giants will pull up the win, but I really expect them to pull up this cover. They're probably looking for a high draft pick so they get a QB, but who knows? 4-8, I think the Giants cover here. That should be an easy one. Yeah.
So, with the exception of the one game against Washington that they won now 3 weeks ago, when they beat Washington 31-19 in Washington, Tommy DeVito had that big game. The Giants have scored 10, 17, 6, 13, 7, 9, 16, 3, 12. The last time they scored over 28 points, with the exception of the Washington game, was week 2 at Arizona. That was it. This team is still challenged offensively. And that game against Washington did not show me anything to prove that they have figured their way out. Because the next game they played against New England on that Sunday after Thanksgiving, they won 10-7. So they scored 10 points there. So this team is still offensively challenged. And so I'm gonna give the Packers here, and I'm gonna lay the 6, and I'm gonna lock this in as my final lock of the week. You're right. Jordan Love has played much better than people have expected him to, and I think that that's why he's getting a little bit more credit than maybe he's earned up to this point. But he's playing with poise. He's playing like he knows, what he's supposed to be doing out there, and he's gotten some sync a little bit more with these receivers. And so I expect him to be able to continue to move the offense and make some plays, and get into the end zone. And if you get into the end zone against the Giants, they have problems matching you point for point. Not to say that Green Bay's defense is any world beaters here or is, looking like they're going to be, going to be able to keep the Packers down or anything anything along those lines. But I think the Packers will be able to score. I think the Packers should be able to score some points, and I still haven't seen what the Giants have been able to do as far as scoring points, especially without Darren Waller. I think that the Packers just sell out on Saquon Barkley, put Tyrod Taylor and or Tommy DeVito into third and long situations, and pin their ears back and go get the quarterback. So I expect Green Bay to win this game pretty handily. I'm a little surprised it's still on Monday night, maybe just because of the prestige of these two franchises. But I'm gonna lay those 6.5. I'll take the Packers. It's my last lock of the week.
All right, taking on Packers. Betting against your team being able to run away from it. I don't get it, but I hear you. Next up, final game of the week, we got the Titans 4-8 at the Dolphins. The Dolphins usually beat the hell out of teams that they are much, much better than. Equal to the other spread, -13. The over-under is 46. If I had another lock, I'd throw it on the Dolphins. I expect them to beat the hell out of the Titans. They're playing against a rookie quarterback. They're going to be at home. It's going to be warm. Tyreek Hill is probably going to have 200 yards. And I'm putting some money on him to win the MVP right now. I believe he is plus 450 still, or plus 500, because they're starting to lean towards Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy can they can get the number 1 seed. I think Brock Purdy will actually get that, even though they're kind of taking credit away from McCaffrey, who I think is a better player on that team, more important to that team than Purdy is, as they've shown with those 3 losses. Or even Debo, or as I said last week, Debo's the most important with Trent Williams, but Purdy I think is 4th on that list. He's barely ahead of Kittle right now. But talking about the Dolphins Titans, the Dolphins, they should beat the hell out of the Titans and make this one. Derrick Henry had to leave the game last week, which is why they lost. And if he can't come in here and perform at a high level, I don't expect him to do much. And the Dolphins got JPP as a pass rusher, who's going to recap the Titans. They haven't moved.
Yeah, we're in sync here. Tennessee is not a great team, and if they don't have their best player, they're not even a good team. They're 4-8. Maybe they found their quarterback of the future in Will Levis. Maybe he's going to be able to, help to steward this franchise back into positive games or positive seasons moving forward. And this will just be a blip on the radar for a Tennessee team who's been relatively successful over the course of the last few years, leading on, their running game and Tannehill and the receivers that they've had. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee is back in a year or two, especially if Levis is the guy that they expect him to be. But right now, they're not a good team. And the Dolphins are. And the Dolphins are at home. And the Dolphins are playing against teams with non-winning records. I mean, remember, the Dolphins haven't beaten a team with a winning record yet, but they're 9-0 against teams with losing records. So they don't necessarily have a problem when they go up against a team that doesn't have a winning record, that isn't one of the top, 2 or 3 teams in the NFL. I expect Mike McDonald to go crazy against this team, with all of the different schemes and different passing routes they can do with Tua just chucking the ball all over the field. I am deathly afraid of Devon Achane, because I'm playing against him in fantasy football this week. I think he can come out there and have a huge game against this team. So I'm just really scared of that, blowing away my entire fantasy season. But yeah, I don't see a situation where Miami doesn't win this by at least 2 touchdowns, at least, if not more.
You think they can put up 50+ points?
I think they could. I don't think they will. I think this goes. I think this goes. 38-13.
Okay.
I think an easy 25-point victory is probably more along the lines. I mean, they scored 45 against Washington in Washington last week. So it's not to say that this is completely possible for them to do it. But well, one thing I definitely believe is that Tennessee and Mike Vrabel is going to try to run the football and keep the game close, keep the ball out of their hands, keep the ball out of Miami's hands. They just won't be able to stop them when they do get the ball. That's the piece I'm more concerned with. So I take the Dolphins here. I'm actually considering flipping my best bet from the Packers to the Dolphins just because of how strongly I feel about the Dolphins. But I think I'll hold, and I'll just keep the Dolphins on the money line, on a money line parlay because I know
Okay.
they're going to win this game. I just don't know by how much.
Gotcha. That's fair. That's fair. All right. We're going into our shout outs. I'm going to go first. I just want to say shout out to Michael Penix for winning the Maxwell Award, which is the best QB in the college football. They should have been the number 1 seed. They kind of got screwed, and very few people are talking about that. I'm hearing a lot of rumors on Twitter, so who knows how legit that is, and on IG and Threads, that Florida State canceled their press conference against Georgia this week. Ahead of the coaches canceled it. It sounds like they're not trying to do any press to promote the New Year's Six Bowl that they're going to. They feel very upset. Their quarterback, Jordan Travis, actually apologized for not getting hurt sooner in the year so that they could see how good this team was without him, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. I think they should be in the college football playoff, but, they chose Alabama because they wanted to make more money. We talked about this on the recap on Tuesday. If you were listening to that, which I know a lot of y'all are, college football fans out there. College football invitation. And there's no real good way to pick a winner. But if you're going to have these guys play these extra games, you might as well put the team in that deserves it the most. And the defense is really good. And there's a lot of blowouts in these games anyway. So I genuinely hope Alabama gets blown out by Michigan. That seems unlikely due to Michigan's, offense and how explosive they kind of are not. And the way Alabama's team is and how good of a coach Nick Saban is. You haven't really seen them getting blown out in any game, even though they lost to Texas by 10 points at home. I hope it ends up being Washington and Michigan in the title game. That would kind of shock everybody with a future all Big Ten championship game. And Caleb Williams, it's smart that you're sitting out this bowl game. You've done as much as you can for that team, unless you're going to come back. I really don't see why you would, but you have that option if you don't want to go to the NFL to a sorry team. I hope the Bears don't draft you. I hope they trade that pick and go somewhere else. We'll see. And shout out to all the FCS teams that are still going. Montana, the Big Sky is still in it. They're leading right now over Furman. 13 minutes to go for all of you degenerates like me who are watching on the second screen on ESPN2. And, I am out. I'll have more shout outs next week. And shout out to LeBron. I hope you get that first title in the in-season NBA Cup. And that's one thing you could have that Michael Jordan will never have. Yeah, Malik.
Thank you, Ace. And I know you gave the shout out to Michael Penix Jr., who won the Maxwell Award. I'm gonna go on the other side of that and give a shout out to LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels, who won the AP Player of the Year award. So these two, as we already know, along with, if I'm not mistaken, Marvin Harrison Jr. are the finalists for the Heisman Trophy, which will be given out, I believe, tomorrow, Saturday, when that'll be announced. So we'll see what happens there. But clearly these two have had the best overall seasons in college football and have been extremely phenomenal as quarterbacks, playing quarterbacks for their teams. And I won't say they came out of nowhere because I think, we all kind of expected, I know I definitely expected Jaden Daniels to play, to play well this season. And Penix has been good throughout his career, maybe not this good, but he's definitely been good throughout his career. But in a season where everybody was talking about Caleb Williams and Drake May and Quinn Ewers and, all these other guys, it's good to see that, these two guys have been, playing spectacular ball for their teams. And Penix, you're right. Washington definitely had a case for getting the number 1 seed, especially after Georgia lost. In fact, they didn't. They're number 2, so we'll see what happens there. Shout out to my Yankees. Shout out to the New York Yankees. We don't really talk about baseball on this podcast really ever, but shout out to them because while Major League Baseball was, going through what has been so far a relatively slow off season for them, and all the talk has been about Shohei Ohtani and where is he gonna go and who's he gonna wind up signing with. The Yankees went out and made a huge trade for Juan Soto, 25 years old, from the San Diego Padres. If you guys remember correctly, Juan Soto was a huge left-handed bat on the Washington Nationals team that won the World Series a couple of years ago. Got
Question
traded
about
to the
that.
Padres.
Is he a
Yeah,
good defensive player?
he's not great. He's solid. He's he's solid. He's like Manny Ramirez defensively. Like Manny Ramirez is going to make all the routine plays, but you're not expecting him to do a whole bunch other than that. His his efficiency out there does come into question. This is why a lot of people believe that his long term viability is as a designated hitter. But at 25 years old, I don't see a reason why he's going to be out there anytime soon playing DH. So, but the bottom line is, this is Brian Cashman and um, the Yankees making up for lost times when they could have had Bryce Harper, who desperately wanted to be a Yankee and did not. They did not sign him, and he wound up going to Philly and lighting it up over there. They went out and got a bat, left-handed bat for Yankee Stadium, to squeeze in between, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, to hopefully make a formidable trio in the middle of that lineup that the Yankees sorely need. So expect a lot out of him. I expect a lot out of him as a hitter. I expect him to play, pretty well in the field. But yeah, I think it was just huge to see them do that during a time again when the world is just watching to see what Shohei Ohtani is going to do. The Yankees have pretty much pulled themselves out of the running for that because the other thing about Soto is he's a free agent next year, so they're going to have to figure out a way to pay him and keep him on the team. If you're going to trade for him, you might as well keep him. Next, shout out to, as I mentioned earlier, we were talking about the NCAA tournament. Shout out to Mr. Tyrese Halliburton. I caught a lot of flack from a lot of people, especially in our larger Facebook group. Shout out to the Dog Pound group out there. If any of you guys are listening to the show, I caught a lot of flack from some of you guys when I said that the Indiana Pacers got the best of the trade when they traded for Tyrese Halliburton, and that I believed in my heart of hearts that Tyrese Halliburton was a better player than De'Aaron Fox. I'm still on that. I'm going to die on that hill. And Tyrese Halliburton, but he is definitely showing that he is worthy of the conversation of being a potential All NBA first team level player. Leading the league in assists. Just went through 2 games against the Celtics and the Bucks, where he had, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 30 some odd assists, 0 turnovers. That is ridiculous in 2 games against those 2 teams. That is ridiculous. Doesn't happen very often. You know that. If you watch basketball, it's not happening very often where the point guard has the ball in his hands that often and does not records that many assists without a turnover. It's absolutely insane. So shout out to him. He's doing his thing. The shot still looks ugly as hell. I don't know how the hell it goes in, but it does. And he's shooting 50-40, almost 50-40-90, which he did last year, and he's going to do it again this year. It's incredible. Last but not least, I had one more shout out. I cannot remember what it was, so I'm gonna lay it out. I'm gonna finish it there. But I am looking very much forward to college basketball coming back as well. Shout out to that. Matter of fact, that's what I was saying. Shout out to college, men's and women's college basketball starting up, and things are starting to heat up. I'm enjoying that, so definitely enjoy that. And I'm out as well. Back to you, Ace.
All right. Hope y'all enjoying listening. Shout out to everybody in Germany who's listening to us. Shout out to everybody in Texas, New York, all the other states, Pennsylvania. We out here. We'll see y'all later. Follow us on Podcast Addict, Spotify, Podbean. Please rate and review. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find us anywhere. Peace.